Hey YouTube, I've been talking to quite a bit of people and actually had a phone call with someone for probably an hour and a half the other day, and all these talks are about prepping and bugging out and what items you need, what you would need to take along with you, and things of that nature. And I thought it'd be a great idea to do a video on this topic, but there's a lot of things to cover, so this will most likely be a lengthier video. But there's a lot of things that you have to think about when you think about prepping and bugging out, getting to a bug out location, like exiting a city, a metropolitan, something of that nature. And it could be for any type of reason. You could have civil unrest, you could have a natural disaster, such as people down in Florida. They're always evacuating for hurricanes and other storms that come their way that can cause them harm. And so what I'm going to be talking about today is mostly about the Canadian climate. And one thing that you have to understand when you bug out is what climate are you in. Now, when you're looking at getting equipment for your bug out bag or your go bag, whatever you want to call it, one thing I would love to stress right off the get-go is don't go with cheap items. And I know that the prepping community has actually grown in the recent years, especially this past year and a half. And so the price of equipment has gone up dramatically. But that doesn't mean that you need to go to cheaper items. One thing you could look at is when you're buying items, one way that you can utilize the item in multiple ways. Such as a poncho. You can use a poncho as rain gear as you're traveling. You could also use it as building a shelter, because it is actually waterproof in most cases, as long as you get a good one, and they're a good size to cover your torso or yourself. Now, the other thing is that you need to understand or ask yourself, how comfortable do you want to be? And I'm not saying this just to make people uncomfortable, but you really have to understand if you're bugging out or you have to leave because of an emergency and you have literally time to grab your bag and head out that door, how comfortable do you want to be? Because you need to understand everything that you carry requires space or it adds weight to your body and your compartment or your bag that you have on yourself. So to get straight to the point, do you actually need toilet paper when you go after you go number 2, or are you comfortable with using leaves? That's kind of how you have to think. Because if you think one roll of toilet paper is going to do you for longer than, I would say, a week, you got something else coming to you. And now also think, what happens if that roll of toilet paper, say, drops in a puddle of water and is completely ruined? Do you just give up, or are you going to be comfortable being uncomfortable? So that's one thing you have to think about and actually reflect on yourself and ask yourself, how comfortable do you want to be? So we're going to dive into this, and what I'm going to do is leave my top 2 most important tips for the very end, and you're going to want to watch this whole thing, because at the end I'm going to bring it all together after I go through all these scenarios. So the first thing you're going to want to think about is your location. And that's going to be your 5 W's. When, where, why, what, and who. So, are you in a location where you have all 4 seasons, such as where we are here in Canada? Or are you somewhere that has 1 season closer to the equator where it's warm all the time? Because that's going to make or break what you take and don't take. People that live in 4 season climate, you're going to either have one bug out bag that's going to cover all 4 seasons, or you're going to be the type of person like myself that changes that one bug out bag as the seasons change and you accommodate to your seasons changing. Now that also goes to say that people that live closer to the equator where it's usually warm typically won't be worrying about blankets and warm clothing, sleeping bags, things of that nature. You're going to have different obstacles, usually about to do with fresh water and staying hydrated. The next topic on location is when. When are you thinking this event is going to happen, or what time of the year is this going to happen? Usually in the winters you're going to have power failures because there's so much demand on the electrical system. So you're going to have to worry about heat. In the summer you could be looking at droughts. So again, water. These are things you're going to have to think about. Why? Why are you bugging out? That's another reason. Are you in a city where you have civil unrest and now you have riots out in the streets? Or are you seeing a tornado coming in the next few hours and you don't have to worry too much about getting shot out in the streets rather than getting away from the storm itself like most people are doing? What is the next topic, and what is your location at that time? Are you the type of person that spends 5 days a week in an office for 12 hours a day? You will most likely be caught at that location. So are you going to have time to go back home to grab your gear, or would it be smart to carry your gear in the vehicle that you're going to work with? If you are someone that's at home with their kids, you're going to have to now worry. Are you going to have just the one bug out bag for yourself? Or are you going to get your children, or are your children old enough to carry equipment themselves? Or are you going to have to carry one of your children with you? So these are things that you're going to have to think about. So every situation is different. This video is going to be a broad spectrum, so you're going to have to pick and choose from this. And finally, the last W for location is who. Who are you going to be with? Again, are you going to be at the office with a bunch of co-workers that usually most of the people don't think about these things? Or are you going to be at home where you have been prepping and you have a pantry at home and you can kind of just chill there for a little bit and hold the ground? Again, it all depends. Think about it, reflect on yourself. Now, we're not going to be talking about staying in your house. We're going to be talking about, say you have to leave and go out into the wilderness. So your first thing is going to be shelter. Are you going to want a tent, or are you okay with a tarp? People that live in not so cold climates, they could most likely get away with a tarp. This again brings me back to comfort. How comfortable do you want to be during these events? So if you're in the winter, are you going to want a 4 seasons tent, or are you going to be one of those that have been climatized and used to sleeping in the cold and okay with a tarp and a campfire right beside them to stay warm overnight. Now, with your shelter, you're also going to need something to sleep on. Again, if you're in the summer, you're not going to have too many things to deal with. You're going to have to worry about rain, so you're not sleeping on wet ground, and bugs. So you might want to make a shelter that is off the ground, or a bed that's off the ground within your shelter that's on the ground. Are you going to be using a sleeping bag, or are you just going to be okay with a wool blanket? If you are in cold weather, you may need to get a thin insulation pad that goes between your body and the snow so that the cold or the snow does not leach the heat away from your body, so that you have a barrier between the snow and yourself, and you can find those basically anywhere in any type of survival store. Even just an air mattress, and that's basically all they are. They're about an inch and a half air mattresses, just something simple like that. The next topic is food. You're gonna need food at some point, and you're gonna say, hey, I can always carry my food, but again, that's gonna add one problem, is that's gonna add weight to your persons, or actually two problems: weight to your persons, and it's gonna take up space that is in your go bag. Now, the next item is foraging. Do you know what kind of skills do you have? Do you know how to forage your own food? What type of plants to look for? What types of plants you need to cook? What type of plants you can eat raw? That type of stuff. What kind of knowledge do you know on different type of plants and plants that are in your area? That's another thing, is you won't have the same plants on the West Coast as you do on the East Coast. So depending on, again, where you are at the situation. The next topic is water. So shelter, food, water right off the bat. And again, it brings me back down to comfort. How comfortable are you? Are you going to need to take your Fiji water with you, or are you okay purifying water out of a stream or a creek or a pond? So there's a couple things that you can take with you. You can take a bladder. So this is a bladder, and it will hold 2 full liters of water. And you do have an attachment for a straw that I cannot find at the moment. I placed it when I was cleaning it out the last time. And a lot of your go bags have spots inside your bags for bladders. Now again, do you want to carry a bladder with you and the weight? You might want to just carry an empty bladder, and so when you get to water, you can fill up your bladder and have a drink at the same time, and then make sure you have enough water till the next time you find another resource for hydrating yourself. And a couple bags I have right here is a small day go bag that I have, and you can simply put the bladder in there. Take a couple other items with you. I have a little sleeping bag here, and I think there's a straw holder right here too, so as you're hiking you can just take a sip. So I do enjoy bladders. Sometimes I fill them up, sometimes I don't. It all depends. You're also going to want, if you don't take a bladder, you're going to want to purify water in some way. And I showed this product in previous videos, and this is your LifeStraw. This is what it actually looks. This is one that I've been using now for the past 6 months. I haven't used it quite a whole lot, just here and there, so it's still got lots of life. And basically, you pull off this tab here, you pull off this tab, it's got a little mesh in there so it keeps out the larger particles, and then there's a filter inside there. Basically you put this in the water and you just sip it any way you want, and these things are great. If again you don't want to carry one of these, you're gonna have to look at your next option, which is either tablets, iodine tablets, or boiling water. And that's kind of why I also have this item here, which I will be talking about in a second. Next is heat. You're going to need something to keep you, start a fire to keep you warm, to cook your meals, to boil your water. And there's a couple things you can take with you. You can take, I've showed these again, ferro sticks. This is a 1/2 inch by 6 inch ferro stick. I believe these are good for about 20,000 strikes, and you can see the sparks that come off of that. So you get some dry tinder, make a little bundle, and you go away with that. I recommend you not just taking one item with you for starting a fire. These are great because they work when they're wet as well, but you could also take a standard Bic lighter, which is great, or matches. Matches I don't recommend because they get wet, they take a while to dry out, and then sometimes they're usually very brittle after they've gotten wet, and the heads typically just snap off. Bic lighter is nice because they always go. It doesn't take long for them to dry out if they do get wet. One thing I'd like to just step back is, if you do take matches with you, make sure you get those Strike Anywhere matches. I believe they have the white heads on them, but when you do buy matches, it'll say usually Strike Anywhere matches. So make sure you look at that. So those are the few items you might want to take. You might want to also take for fires is, if you're working with damp wood, take some fire starters. So I'm going to do a video coming up on some fire starters that you can take along with you, and ones that you can make yourself. And the ones that you make yourself I find are a lot cheaper and a lot better than the ones you will buy. So keep a lookout for that video coming up in the future. Now, the gentleman that I was talking about or talking to the other day, he was talking about moving a fairly long distance when and if he needs to bug out. And if you're only going 10-20 kilometers from outside of the city, you don't really need to worry about this. But if you're going distance and through provinces and things like that, you're gonna need a few things. You're gonna need directions on how to navigate where you are, how you're gonna get there. So you're gonna need maps. That is first and foremost. Now, I know we are in the age of electronics, so I'm not saying that we're taking electronics with you, and I highly recommend that you stay away from electronics. Because again, you're gonna need power to power those. You're gonna need internet to usually get a signal as to where you are on your GPS, or to even use maps. I think Google Maps you can't use unless you have some sort of internet access. And a guy like myself, or a couple like Kimberly and I, we don't have a cell phone or anything, we have a tablet. So if I leave maybe 20 feet from the house, I lose my signal and I'm completely without communication. So understand and get some maps for your location or where you're going to travel to. So if you're traveling cross country, look for maps. They're fairly inexpensive. I believe your standard map still goes between $7 and $10. And you're also going to want a compass. This is the compass I use. This is SUUNTO compass. This one was fairly expensive. I believe this one was about $60, but you know, it's actually helped me and got me out of the forest probably about a week and a half ago. I was rucking around, kind of got lost, and was able to navigate my way out back to the main road using the compass. This one here is very well built. And it's got many features. It has obviously your main dial here with your compass. It's got measurements on the side here so that you can take measurements on your maps according to the scale. You also have degrees on the side here. On the inside there is a mirror, so say you get injured or something on your face, you can look at yourself and check yourself out, make sure that you're good. It's also got a magnifying glass. One for the text that's in the maps themselves, and also that you can say, again, thinking outside the box and using your items for multiple purposes, you can actually on a bright sunny day reflect the sun on some wood or some paper and start a fire. So there is a fourth way of making fire if need be. If you are going to take some sort of electronics, understand you're going to need power. And so I would recommend that you take some sort of memory or energy block with you. So this one here, I'm not sure how many milliamps this is. I've had this for numerous years. However, I can charge my tablet probably 3 times just one full charge of this. However, again, you're going to need power to recharge the charger. So if you can stay away from electronics, that would be great. Rely on your old school methods. So a compass and maps, get back to basics. There's many videos out there on YouTube on how to use a compass, how to use a map, how to navigate using the two. So I highly recommend you go out there and look for those things. Or one thing about maps and using them is when you are in an SHTF situation, one thing you need to look at is where are you going and how are you going to get there. Many people want to think about the standard options is using roads and highways. However, what if you are in a complete lockdown and there's checkpoints in and out of your town? Now you need to look at old roads that have been overgrown. You can also look at different routes such as trains. Train routes are usually clear in the summer, clear in the winter, and if they're not, they usually will be shortly. Another thing is that people don't think of too often is hydro lines. Not the ones just on the roads, but I'm talking the high voltage lines that are coming, say, from your coal or nuclear plants. Or ones that are crossing in large fields. Those are always going to be kept mowed and manageable just in case they ever have to do maintenance on those hydro lines or hydro poles. So those are also great ways of navigating in and out of a city without being too noticeable. Again, train tracks is a nice one, and water lines. So you're going to have a map, you're going to hit a water spot, and now you're going to know where you are and what lake you have hit. So if you follow a shoreline, you will understand where you're going to get to. So again, thinking outside of just your standard roads and highways, think about train tracks, hydro lines, waterways. All right, next is communication. If you're in a grid down situation and your cell phones aren't working, landlines aren't working, you're going to need a couple other things. You're going to need a radio of some sort if you want to communicate with the outside world. And a couple things there you can get is a ham radio. I believe you need a license to purchase those. However, I'm not saying do it, but I'm sure there's ways around that. A bush radio. So out here where we live, we do not have cell phone reception, and the way you navigate the roads is using a bush radio that use RR channels, and you kind of have to do it manually, radio out where you are, and it's a back and forth, and sometimes you're caught by surprise with those that do not have bush radios. The next thing you can do is go back even further in time and get back to the CB radio. Up until we moved out to BC here, I had a CB radio in my truck, and actually on the way across Canada, the CB radio helped us greatly. We hit a fatal accident. Didn't know what was going on. We were sitting there for about 2 hours. I was running low on gas, didn't have an extra fuel tank with me, and I didn't see where the traffic started, nor did I see where it ended, or should I say the traffic jam. And I was able to radio forward to the truckers and get some information, and realized that I did not have to go back to the next town to stay overnight or anything like that, that they were actually opening up the road. So CB radios are also a great idea, and here is an example of a CB radio that you can use just on a handheld. It does take AA batteries, however, communication is one of those things that will be necessary at one point. And the final way of communication is just your standard two-way radio. These are just the Midland radios that Kimberly and I use on the homestead. They do have a range of like 17 kilometers on a clear path, and even in the forest here, we've been able to communicate with each other over a mile through the thick bush. So I'm not saying you're gonna get saved by one of these, but having one of these, having them on, you never know who you're gonna pick up in an emergency or grid down situation, because you don't know who has that same idea of just taking a radio, turning it on, just scanning the radio stations, and picking someone up. The next one is going to be clothing. Again, this one is dependent on the weather and where you are. So I would say I'm not going to concentrate too much for the warm weather, because you really don't need much in warmer weather. So we're going to talk about winter. Wool clothing, hands down. Make sure you have some good footwear and layer up. Don't think about big bulky clothing. Get some like long johns, and then some sweatpants, and then some snow pants over top of that. So that way you have multiple layers of heat retention. Make sure you have some good headgear. If you're bald like myself, you're gonna freeze up top pretty quick. However, if you got a good head of hair on you, you might be good for an extra few hours, and I will be. So good headgear. It all depends on the person. And make sure you have some waterproof outer gear. That could be either a rain jacket, or you can take a poncho with you, or something like that. I prefer ponchos because if you have a go bag over or on your back, a poncho will cover both the bag and yourself, so it'll protect your gear that is in the bag as well. Again, getting back to the electronics, people are going to be like, oh, I'll get one of those Milwaukee battery-powered heat jackets. Like, if we're in a grid down situation, yeah, that's cool and great for the first few hours. But I know for a fact that those batteries will only heat your jacket for a maximum of 10 hours. What are you going to do the next couple days? Think about that. Don't be naive and think you can just rely on technology these days, and don't talk about, oh, I'm just going to carry half a dozen batteries with me, because if that's what you're going to do, well, you got some other problems coming up the pipe. So, and then also a change of clothing would be great. So say something happens, you fall through some ice, you get wet, you get the chills, something happens, and you need to change your clothing. A nice change of clothing would be great. You don't necessarily need all 3 layers, 2 jackets, 2 snow pants, things of that nature. I would say your base layers would be most important, especially 2 wool long johns, 2 wool undershirts, things of that nature, because wool will dry out a lot quicker, and wool will also keep you warm even when it's wet. And now tools. These are some great things to have. People like to always have the latest and greatest. I'm going to go through a couple things real quick. So you're going to need something to get your firewood with. So you can get here, I have a mossy oak handsaw. This one is great for smaller twigs and things. I really don't like it. The blade is way too flimsy. However, in a pinch, it does the job. You can also grab one of these silky saws. If I was to pick any type of saw out there, it would be this silky saw, because I can cut pretty much as fast as I can with a chainsaw with this handheld silky saw. The next item would be a machete. So a machete can be used something to kill your food, and it could also be great for cutting down wood. You can I've cut down wood up to 2 inches thick in diameter with this machete. However, you're going to need something to sharpen that with. So keep that in mind. You can also take a axe or one of these multi-tools that are off-grid tools. That is an axe for one, and then it's a hammer, it's a wrench, it's multiple things, and it's also got a saw inside there. So, excuse me, reassess what you want to take, because this right here is a lot heavier than the saw there, and I don't know how many things I'll be hammering and nailing with this thing and using as a wrench, but you never know. Every situation is different. Now cooking, you're going to want something to cook your food. So I touched on this just a little while ago, excuse me. So I've used this numerous times going fishing. You can see it's been used. I'll leave links in the description for anything that I have here if you're looking at purchasing these items. However, this one here is a Stanley cook set. So this is 100% stainless steel. I can boil water in this, I can cook food in this, and as you can see, it comes with 2 little mugs, so that if I want to have tea, separate everything, say there's 3 of us, I can separate between 3 of us, whatever we want. I can hang this and cook it over the fire. I can actually put this right in the fire with the lid on there. The only thing I don't like about this thing is that they made this top here plastic and it's starting to melt a little bit, but if it ever goes, I can always just put a little metal loop in there and keep it going. But this is great for helping if you're cooking on a windy day, any debris from falling inside your canister here. So cooking with this item alone is great, and it'll purify your water. It's got measurements on the side. It's a solid device, and it packs up really quickly. Alright, the next thing is you're going to need to fix items or do some tinkering at some point. And so my go-to tool usually is a multi-tool, a Leatherman, which is the preferred brand. And if you get one of these, you're pretty much set to take on any little task. So you got obviously some sort of pliers here. They can strip wire. You got knives in here. You have scissors. You have bottle openers. You have a flathead, a Phillips. You have little saws in here. Multiple tools. make sure you get a good quality. Don't get something that's like $20 from Walmart, because it's not gonna last. The next thing you're gonna want to do is, night does come down and you're gonna need a flashlight. So are you gonna use a battery operated flashlight? Most likely not, because your batteries are going to run out at some point and you don't want to be carrying batteries. So I would recommend a flashlight such as this. So this one does have batteries in it. However, it is a crank light, so that I can crank it if I need power at night. And it is a solar light as well. It is quite bright, and it has the SOS light on it as well. Look into something like that. They're great, so you can use it on a sunny day. Just charge it, and you know at night you're gonna need to cook your meals, you're gonna need to set up shelter, whatever it may be, and you're good to go. The next item on the docket is a knife. You can use the knives that you have in your multi-tool. However, they're usually not the greatest, especially if you're looking for splitting wood. I do have other knives I was going to show you. However, I can't find them at the moment, so I'll keep my daily driver here and show you. This is typically what I have, is a knife on me at all times. If you're looking at a knife, make sure you get something that's a solid shaft all the way down here. Typically the other knives will be the blade here, it'll get thinner in here and then go into a blade, and they typically get weak and are not able to get hit on the top here. Say you're splitting wood, or you want to say break glass, because this has got a glass breaker on it as well. So a good quality knife I would highly recommend. This one I will leave also a link in the bottom in the description. I believe this one went for about $100, and I would highly recommend it. You're gonna get hurt at some point, so medical devices or medical help will not always be readily available, so you're gonna want some sort of medical kit. Depending on how many people are with you is gonna depend on how big of a pack you take. So this one I have here is good for 7 people up to 14 days. I would not recommend keeping it and going for 14 days. I would have that, because you don't know what kind of situation a person will be in. But again, you can see how big this pack is. So this will take up quite a bit of real estate in your backpack. So you might want to get a smaller kit than this. Now this is the one we just keep around the house, and then I also have one that goes in my go bag as well. One thing I would recommend you adding to your medical kit is a tourniquet, just in case you have some severe bleeding and need to stop the bleeding some way. So the other thing you're going to need is some sort of cordage. Cordage is always good for setting up shelter, tying your food up into a tree if you're in bear country. That's always help. Guns and ammo, you're going to need to stay safe, or shoot down your meal, something of that nature. Again, it's gonna take weight and space inside, but again, if you carry a 22, that can be sufficient enough. But if you want to take a shotgun and take a bunch of buckshots with you, that's gonna be quite a bit of weight you're adding, plus the inconvenience of carrying a longer gun. Finally, last but not least, your bug out bag, or your go bag, or your rucksack, whatever you may have. There's many out there. You're gonna want to run down the stats, the details on them, what you're looking in for a bag. I used to carry just a regular small backpack, which is sitting back there. I also have this one here that I showed you earlier for just a day go. However, I also have my newly acquired go bag. This is a 55-liter 2-ton rucksack, I can do some more a different video on that if anyone's interested down the road, kind of how I pack it, what I put in there, and where things go. And I'm going to touch back on all these items. Is you can have all these items, make sure they're good quality, go out there and use them, make sure that they can withstand the use and abuse that you're going to put them through. Go out for a night and stay in the wilderness and put this stuff to use. Now, like I said at the beginning of the video, I got two very important points that I want to put out here. And that is knowledge is what you're going to need the most of. You can have all the tools that you want. You can have all of this. But if you don't know how to use it, it's very useless to you. And I understand you have to have these items in order to learn how to use them. However, you don't want to buy this stuff, pack your bag, and just leave it in there until a situation arises and then you want to use it. There's a saying that I've seen on previous channels that people think that in an SHTF situation that they will rise to the level of expectation, but they will actually fall to the level of knowledge. So if you don't have knowledge, these tools are useless. Those people that have knowledge, on another note, they can survive without tools. They know how to use things multiple ways. So that's why I said, make sure that whatever you pack that you can use in multiple ways. A couple things that you can do right off the bat is purchase books and get information. We're in a day of information now. And here are a couple books that I would recommend you get. Edible and medicinal plants. This one is of the Rocky Mountains. We live in the Rocky Mountains. I want to know what I can eat out here, what I can use for illness, what I can should not eat, what's poisonous, what's not. So this would be something that I would actually take if I'm not comfortable going out there for days at a time and not knowing what to eat. You're damn sure I'm going to put this in my bag and take it with me. Go out there a couple days out of a week and start walking around and try and identify what you have in your surroundings. Another book that I would recommend you have if you don't have knowledge is this SAS Survival Guide. This book is going to teach you a lot, and you can take it with you because there's a lot of information to know in a survival situation. So this one will teach you preparation, navigation, food and health, safety and security, and disaster survival. So I would say that if you want to take some knowledge with you, this book is obviously very small. It fits in the palm of my hand. So if you're going to be one of those guys that I'm going to buy stuff and figure out later, well, you might want to pick up this book. And now the biggest factor that I find out that people fail out is in SHTF preparedness or any prepping community is that people do not prep themselves. And what I'm talking about is physically and mentally. They do not put themselves in strenuous situations. You can have all these things, but if you're going to be shivering at night and crying because it's a little cold outside or you're getting rained on, well, I'm sorry, but you're not going to last long. So, how well do you work under stress? Can you carry? Have you been able to pack all your gear up into your go bag, put it on your back, and actually walk and realize how long you can carry that bag? Have you, and if you have, has it been just on a sidewalk? Have you tried it in mud? Have you tried it on a rainy day? With and without a poncho, because if you have a poncho on it, it's going to stay light. But if it does not have a poncho on it and it gets rained on, guess what? You're just adding more weight to yourself and to your bag. How do you react in those situations? How do you react in cold and heat? Do you know how long that you can go for before you need a drink of water or before your muscles start cramping? How do you endure pain? If you're walking with your rucksack and your boots and you start blistering up in your feet, can you withstand that mental pain? Or are you going to stop and say, we need to stop here before I fix my boo-boo? These are things that and I'm not trying to joke around here, these are things that you're going to actually have to think about here. It's not something that is going to be easy for many people, and many people will fail, and they're going to fail fatally by not being prepared mentally and physically. Are you able to go a while without food? So working out, you're gonna know how much calories you need to work. Do you work every day as a physical job, or are you someone who's in IT sitting at a desk? Because someone who has a physically demanding job will not have to work and practice as hard as someone that is in IT, because your muscles will not be developed as the other person. So these are things that you're gonna have to deal with mentally and physically. So it's important to test your mental fitness. Go on a ruck and see how long you can go before you need to refuel. Or if your feet blister up, can you mentally continue? And I'm just doing it around the block, so that if you can't do it, you are at a short distance from your home. So I'm not saying go out in the forest and get lost, get hurt, and figure it out. Do 5, 10, 20 laps around your house and see how you do. Yeah, people might think you're weird, but you know, you're gonna be the one that's ahead of the game come a situation. Sleep outside. Don't do it just in the summer and when it's convenient. It's getting colder now here in October. You know, set your site up outside during the day when it's warmer, and set up a fire, and see how you deal with -4, -5, -6. If you're having issues with that, or you're underprepared, overprepared, that's when you can assess. You don't want to do it in a situation of desperate times. When it's raining, go on a hike, see how it works. And on the next prepping videos that I'm going to be doing is going to be ways that you can prepare yourself mentally and physically. I will be showing you some supplements that you can help yourself. I'm not going to get into the whole meal plan and all that stuff. I'll be showing you actual supplements that you can take and reasons why I take them, why Kimberly takes them, why you should take them in preparedness of something happening. What you can do mentally, such as taking cold showers. How long do you do that? Because in reality, if you're going to bathe outside, you're going to need to do it in cold water, because you're not going to have the luxury of hot. Unless you're going to boil a lot of cups of water, such as in this canister. So I know this was a long one. Thanks for hanging in there with me. I will see you on the next video. Take care.